Welcome to the Worldwide Doula podcast. I'm Barry, I'm a registered nurse and birth doula, and each week I'm joined by a new guest speaker to talk about all things pregnancy, birth, babies, and parenthood. So it's time to sit back and relax as we get into some juicy topics. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Worldwide Doula podcast. Today I'm here with a beautiful mama, Layla. She's from Slovakia, but currently living in Bali with her two gorgeous children and her husband. Welcome to the podcast, Layla. Thank you for coming to talk to me today.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Layla helps women reconnect with their wombs, conceive, and empowers them to birth with pleasure rather than pain, which is something a lot of women fear. The pain commonly associated with childbirth, which today we're going to be exploring a topic that is quite unknown, ecstatic birth. Layla is going to be telling us about her experience and how she has managed to have an ecstatic birth with her daughter, Andara. Such a beautiful name. Oh my gosh. She's also going to be diving into how you can have an ecstatic birth for yourself if you are looking to have one. Do you want to start by explaining what exactly ecstatic birth is and how it differs from the conventional birth experiences of today?
Sure, I'd love to. I mean, this is literally my most favorite topic in the whole world. This is what I feel women came on earth for. You know, if you choose to be a mother, there's definitely that beautiful expansive way to birth. And in general, feminine energy in women, whether it's children or project or a love or new dimensions and realities, the goddess birthing galaxies and new possibilities, right? So this is really like a practice and an embodiment that should be more talked about and more in our awareness, in our consciousness. And yeah, for me personally, I experienced ecstatic rebirth with my daughter. She is my second child. So I definitely knew already what a birth is. I went through it once with my son. I was very well aware about everything that's possible and of my body and its capabilities. And so we ended up giving birth in 2 hours, just me and my
Wow.
husband on Hawaii. So, ecstatic birth for me personally is processing your emotional body and so on. But at the same time, the biggest aspect of what I've done was a deconditioning of the humanity belief system of pain at birth. Because there's that collective trauma, there's that collective consciousness that there's huge pain at birth. Even, you know, in our day and age, that it's complicated, that it's a medical experience, that, you know, we need to be monitored and checked and interventions, all of that, you know. So if you can go and work with your belief system and unplug those energetical cords and unplug those limiting beliefs and conditioning out of your field, out of your mind, out of your body, you have a big chance of experiencing something new, of experiencing something real, of experiencing a different truth to the collective narrative. And what happens is orgasmic birth, ecstatic birth. I call mine ecstatic because it was literally like ecstasy, like every wave, you can call it contractions or waves or openings. It was every wave that rushed through me. I was like in such celebration, ecstatic because I felt connected to the universe. I kind of felt like there's fireworks in my brain. Like the whole universe is just sparkles and fireworks and just like so much ecstatic bliss. So maybe I've invented that name, ecstatic birth, but I have nothing else to label it as. So
Wow, that sounds amazing. Oh my God. If we had every birth like that, I mean, people already come out of their birth and they're like, okay, that was like really hectic. But then a little bit later on, when they're cuddling their baby a few weeks after, they're like, oh, I want to do it again. There's still a lot of good hormones that are released, but I think that there is a lot of birth associated with pain. And there is a movement towards birth becoming more pleasurable
I've experienced a lot of intensity in those 2 hours. Everything was moving so fast. I couldn't even had time to like check. I thought maybe I'll check if I'm like 10 centimeters, if it's okay to push or everything. There was no time for anything. It was just like every wave. Wow. It was kind of like the acceleration. So this intensity of the body, imagine your cervix, your bones are opening to 10 centimeters. Of course, it can be this intensity that's happening within the labor can be translated as pain. If there's this intense energy coming to us and we're scared of it, we're going to contract, we're going to freeze, we're going to start creating tension, and tension creates more and more of pain. If we are feeling so open to it, we're like inviting this energy, we're like celebrating it. And this is what I felt with my second child, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening, she's coming. I was like in such joy, right? So my translation of this energy was like, oh my gosh, amazing, I can't wait, she's coming, this is happening, my body knows what she's doing. Like when you are in that full trust, you know everything is good, that your body knows, that your womb knows, that your baby knows, that there's no fear in the space. You can start welcoming this intensity and moving through it. And of course, my husband was doing all the right moves, pushing on the pressure points, pouring water down my spine. I was in my, dream water bath that we prepared. So I was kind of just like spiraling and dancing with this energy. And I felt supported. I felt so safe. I felt in such celebration. I created an altarpiece. I had my purple roses around, the playlist, the music. So I've created kind of a ceremonial and a feminine and a sensual place of safety, of beauty, of bliss. And already that supported me so much. My husband was there, and because there was nobody else, we were fully naked. We had a heater on as well. We just had warm, kind of like intimate environment. We were kissing, we were making out, touching. And so that was a huge aspect that supported that. It's very different to have a very sterile, cold, lights on, strangers environment. I don't think any woman can feel blisgasmic, orgasmic, intimate, open, sensual, free, primal in those environments. And you can, in a way, that portal is so strong that it can overtake you. You don't even see what's around you, and you can have your ecstatic birth no matter what and no matter the circumstances. But if you can support yourself and create this ambience, then, the better, the easier. There's not much filtering that you have to do.
It sounds like a really beautiful experience. What is the difference between ecstatic birth and orgasmic birth? Is this a term that you created, that you came up with yourself?
I would say so. I don't know if I heard a lot. I definitely heard about orgasmic birth. I've created ecstatic birth because it was like those fireworks and like that ecstasy and that celebration. On the other hand, orgasmic birth, and I've heard about it a lot, and it's kind of when I would say, and what I've heard from other doulas that have been around orgasmic birth, it can happen naturally, just the way the baby is passing through, but it does require a lot of intimacy with your partner. What most doulas or midwives tell me, actual stimulation of the yoni.
What is a yoni, quickly? Because I've heard in my previous episode with Nadine, she said yoni, and I know what it is.
Yoni is the Sanskrit, the yogi word for
allowing your vagina to stretch and allowing your uterus to open properly, allowing it to all expand and not bearing down, when they say push, don't. That's not how you should birth your baby.
In stimulation to receive that orgasmic birth, which I personally haven't been doing. I was very intimate with my husband, but it translated more in that like higher bliss frequencies than the orgasmic energy. The orgasmic energy was there for sure. I had some waves where it was like, just so much pleasure. But the ecstatic part of my birth overtook that aspect of the orgasmic. So I think it's just about the translation, and if it's more in the yoni and in her body, or if it's more like a cosmic, galactic source oneness experience. Sometimes it can be very shamanic, very earthy, very primal. Some women are very connected to those like primal roars and spirit animal, and things like that, right? So we're like, it really is a ceremony. It's the most empowering moment of a woman's life. It's that death of the maiden and rebirth of the mother, if it's like your first birth as well. And don't let anyone take this chance away from you. Like, really commit for the birth to be the most empowering moment of your life, because it is. It has that potentiality, and it has the potentiality to rebirth you to the next levels of power, unconditional love, compassion, and spiritual connection than anything else. And I've done a lot of breath work. I'm a yoga teacher. I do womb activations. I've even done some plant medicine ceremonies. And birth of my baby girl is the highest frequency I've ever received to this day. And it is like, I'm still trying to translate it to some extent. I'm trying to see how this frequency of what women really are, like the divinity of a woman and what she's capable of. I'm trying to like somehow translate it in words, in practices, in teachings, in my activations, but truly incredible to realize.
It's amazing what we can achieve. Like our bodies as women, we are actually very powerful. Our hormones have a huge impact on how we feel during birth. And it's really interesting actually, because the pain and the pleasure signals to the brain, the neurological signals to the brain, are actually the same pathways, the same neural pathway. So when your kid falls over and somebody says, oh, rub it, rub it better or kiss it better, it actually is scientifically proven to make them feel better, because the pain pathway is the same as the pleasure or the touch pathway. And so if you do touch, it actually blocks the pain signals, which is very interesting. And all the hormones that are released during birth have the ability to make you feel ecstatic and make you feel orgasmic. And it's the same when we have an orgasmic experience during sexual intercourse. It's the same hormones that are released when we're giving birth. So a lot of people look at it like, oh, that's kind of really hippie stuff. I can't have an orgasmic birth. That's like, you have to be really hippy dippy to do that. And it's really not true. People sometimes are surprised when they have an orgasmic birth and they weren't even trying. They're like, whoa, what was that? Like, that felt like fireworks, exactly what you said. So it's amazing that you had that experience and you help women have orgasmic or blisgasmic births. You help women have these kind of births. Is that correct?
Yes. I do support women with conception even. And then I do have clients ongoing throughout their pregnancies. And I actually just picked up a few months ago my work again, because I took a break after giving birth, for the first year and a half. So I have currently 3 pregnant clients that we are doing our sessions monthly, and a monthly support system and so on. So I'm very curious how their births will go as well. But I've already shared with some, highly pregnant mamas as well, and they've received the codes and they felt like that really impacted their births as well. And it was that like more ecstatic experience, or almost like a free birth. And then one thing that really I wanted to share that came through when you were sharing about the scientific, research of the pathways and hormones and everything. And what I think also is not really understood yet in society is the subtle energy levels of the birth. The child does not know separation yet. So it's really experiencing everything as the mother is. It's like a process, last part of this oneness, and then they're getting birth into a world where they're learning how to be outside of the water, and they're in their own illusion of separation, but they have this body where they're going to start experiencing this. But I really believe that you can imprint their blueprint in oneness, in this unity, when you actually have this conception from beautiful love, from sacred union. You have a birth where the woman is having an ecstatic experience. That child is going to have a very, very strong imprint of unity, of oneness, of divine love in their field. I can see that so strongly in my baby girl. And everyone that knows her, they're just baffled. It's like, wow, she really is bliss. And it's just her natural essence.
It is really true. How you bring your baby into the world does really impact who they are when they're born and afterwards as well, you know, as they grow up. I was talking to a woman the other day and she's a nutritionist. I've posted the podcast about her episode, but she did say something that kind of goes hand in hand with this. What you eat when you're pregnant and even before you conceive, it does affect your baby's health and then their baby's health after that. And it goes as deep as also how you birth your baby, the energy and the feelings and the hormones that are released during your birth. If you have a lot of scared energy, if you feel a lot of pain, there's the fight and flight hormones that are released. Obviously, they will be released. It's a very intense experience to go through, but there will be less stress hormones released if you are feeling the pleasure hormones a lot more. And that goes through to the baby and it really sets them up for life to feel this loving energy, this positive energy and this positive hormones coming through. They get this big dose and they just turn out to be the most delicious, scrumptious babies and just so calm. Well, maybe not even calm. My mum was very in touch with herself when she was giving birth to me, and everybody said that I was such a loving child, but I was very loud. When I wanted something, I made it known. But yeah, I think that's amazing. Yeah, that's beautiful. What made you choose to have an ecstatic birth? Like, did you know about it before you were pregnant or?
My daughter chose it. I've been very deeply in touch with her 2 years before she was born. She came to me for the first time in Hawaii. Actually, we were visiting Hawaii and I couldn't deny it. I was in such deep communication with her the whole 2 months we were on the islands. I kept holding my womb. I was acting like I'm pregnant. There would be intuitive people coming to me and telling me, "You're pregnant with a baby girl. Her name starts with A." And I'm like, I know. Like I'm talking to her every day. Like I've had some very powerful moments, and that's how she came to me. She started to pull away that conditioning of pain at birth. She started to clear my cellular memory and she started to reveal herself to me. And I felt so deeply in love with her because I was like, I've never seen such a divine feminine energy in my life. I've never seen anything so beautiful than you. Like I am devoting my entire life to you. Like, yes, she has been with us energetically. I knew very strongly that it's going to be an ecstatic birth, that it's going to be almost like a free birth because I didn't really know anyone else that was ready energetically for what was coming. Nobody else was so intimate with us for the 2 years, only my husband. I've been translating, I've been telling him everything that she's been sharing with me energetically. So he was in such devotion, in such trust, in such love to her already and to the process. So I didn't feel safe having anyone else around because it was not that connection, not that intimacy, and not that 1,000,000,000,000% belief in her. When I really just followed her guidance, it was effortless. And so this is the biggest thing that I help women to start connecting to the blueprint of the souls of their children, start having a very intimate and deep connection with their wombs, and start connecting with their babies so they can really listen. Because I believe once we have children, we're in the background. We're not anymore ruling our reality. They are a higher technology, they are a higher consciousness, and they're orchestrating everything already.
It's huge to be so connected with your baby. And I can't say this enough to people. Like, when it comes to birthing babies, it's so important to listen to your body. And part of that is listening to your baby, because the mum intuition is real. Having your baby inside you and listening. If you're 42 weeks pregnant still and nothing's happened, you haven't gone into labor, wait. It's not going to be the end of the world if you go to 43 weeks. Most of the time, you do give birth at the 43-week mark, latest. But I do know a lot of women who have just trusted in their bodies, trusted in the fact that their baby and their body will work together. You're talking about trusting your baby even before conception, and that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about that, so that's really great to know. But I'm talking about once you actually start to think about birth and choosing the birth that you feel deeply that you need to have is really going to heal any pains that you or traumas that you have with your previous birth. What was your birth like with your son?
I was with my daughter, I was 42 and a half weeks. I mean, she was perfect. Like the water was so clean, she was so clean, like perfection. When you are pregnant, they start like their personality, like you can feel it, you can feel them. Suddenly you're like, oh, like that's why they're like women are crazy when they're pregnant. Yeah, because they have two personalities. They're like themselves and there's somebody else too. You know?
Yeah.
With my son, he's a manifester and his not self is anger. I don't have this. I'm like a generator. Like I am rarely angry. I was angry once in my life when I was pregnant with him. I got so angry with my husband. I had this urge, and nothing was more satisfying than breaking things. This raging pregnant woman, and I started to break things, and it was giving me so much like pleasure and so much relief, and it was like literally what I needed. And here we go, toddler stage of our son, and he just loves throwing things. It's like his way of releasing all that energy and emotions that he's feeling, and it allowed me to accept him. It allowed me to empathize with him because I felt it during that pregnancy too. And I was like, oh, this is actually feels really good for him. This is actually a way where he can let this energy go out of him. So I'm not gonna like punish him or making him wrong that he's breaking things or throwing things. I'm going to make sure he can throw, soft things or, make it safe for all of us. But this is his outlet. And so things like that. Don't think you're just a crazy pregnant woman. Actually take notes because it will be helpful in the following years as a mother or a parent, to these children.
To understand them more deeply. Yeah. What kind of birth did you have with your son? I feel like ecstatic birth was something new for you with your daughter.
It was very different. It was also the islands. We were off of Bali. We were on a very small island, very remote island, Gili Meno. That's where I gave birth to Star. It was like this place where like time stops. Everyone's just like having their siestas. And so kind of like that was the birth. It was kind of like slow, 20 hours. I was just like on the beach, swimming, walking. We had a fire. So it was very slow. And in a way, like the biggest mistake I made was I definitely got really dehydrated because the whole day on the sun, in the ocean, salt, like all the elements. And the evening came and I was not dilating enough. So that was the big mistake. I definitely was extremely hydrated. The second time and during the pregnancy as well, I was actually, drinking like alkaline, molecular hydrogen, like a very special water in my second pregnancy. But it was really beautiful because I got to feel those like, oh my gosh, is this right? Is this okay? Like, I got to actually face fears. I got to feel that point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like it was like 16 hours in, and I was like painful and uncomfortable. I kind of was almost ready to give my power away. Luckily, I was on this remote island. There was nothing to do, you know.
Yeah.
So I had a beautiful doula with me. She
Yeah.
looked into my eyes and she was like, she only said two words. She was like, Layla, you can do this. I feel like that was so important for me to experience it in the first birth because I gained next level power.
That's
No,
such a different experience. Wow. But it was still such a big transformation for you from maiden to mother. There were a few things that you touched on, and I just wanted to highlight that the environment that you put yourself in when you have this baby is so important. And that's one of the things that a lot of mums are experiencing when they go into hospital, or even if they have a home birth and they have somebody in the room that they're not even subconsciously not comfortable with. It will stop them from having that baby, or it will make the labor longer.
I
Mm.
had one person on the island on that first birth, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, like she came, it was a sister, and she was like, I'm going to support. And then a few days before, I was like, I don't really feel I want her there.
Yeah.
And she kind of like took her stand, but she was still on the beach, or she kind of came along. And yeah, this is 100% true. And I've heard it from other sisters, and how much, like, for example, when that person got removed from the room, how things, started to move and so on. So if you really are wishing to have a higher experience in your birthing, surround yourself only with the people you trust and feel the most comfortable. And if you think you trust them, but there is something within you that's not in alignment, trust that. Trust your womb, trust your intuition. Remove yourself as much as possible from those dangers of unwanted people walking in, and make sure that that space is supportive to your needs and is only safe people around you, for sure.
It's amazing how many women who go into hospital and they end up just going into the bathroom and locking their door and then having their baby in the bathroom. It's amazing. And it's not even some conscious thing. They just like subconsciously, okay, this is what my body needs. And
Yeah.
they just go and they lock the door. I think if you trust your body, then everything will happen smoothly. And also in that aspect, trusting your body to know when something's wrong and then seeking the help then.
There's nobody else that birthing your baby. Honestly, it's only you, and your body knows. And look at the population, look at planet Earth. Like, obviously, we know how to give
Yeah.
birth to children.
Yeah.
It is a natural aspect. And just because it has been removed and kind of tabooed or put, into hospital rooms, or kind of like away from our eyes, we think it's something abnormal. But before, when, within tribes or communities, women were laboring at home and the women were around, like the women felt like this is a natural aspect of life. And so that's why they didn't have so many complications and so on, because it wasn't like a removed thing from their consciousness. It was just natural part of life. Yeah.
Yeah, I posted something on my Instagram. It was kind of a joke, but it said babies aren't pizzas, they're born, not delivered. I just wanted to say that. No, really, no one is going to deliver that baby other than you. Like, the doctor can't just be like, hey, let's have this baby. And it's not like you can snap your fingers and have your baby like that. You have to be in exactly the right environment. And what you said about being dehydrated, so many hospitals have a policy where you're not allowed to eat or drink during birth. There's no studies behind it that say that you aren't allowed to eat or drink during your birth. They basically want to prepare for worst case scenario. If you eat or drink something, they don't want you to not be able to go under general anesthetic if you need to at the end of the day. So you don't have any energy to birth this baby. And this is a huge experience. You need all the energy that you can get. You need the
Yeah.
hydration. If your birthing team is saying, no, you're not allowed to eat, ask them to leave and just sneakily, have your little bite in the corner because you need it. You really do. This is your
Yeah,
body.
with
This is
my
your
second
birth.
birth, I remember I had this huge late lunch. I was already feeling some kind of sensations that day, and we went to the beach and I swam, and then we met up with friends. It was so casual the whole day. And so we are eating, still, it's like 4 p.m., and I have a huge meal, huge drinks. I think I had like a sugar cane juice, like so
Oh.
all this energy and hydration. They had like these huge natural sugar cane juices there, and I came home and I actually received an acupuncture because, I was 42 and a half weeks, and a friend told me, why don't you schedule acupuncture? It can help open up or just support. So I didn't know it was that day I was gonna start feeling the beginning of labor, but I had it scheduled. So I came home 5 p.m., had the acupuncture. 7 p.m., the practitioner left. I took a shower, and suddenly it was like every 5 minutes, came out of the shower, every 4 minutes. 9 p.m., she was born. My contractions started 9 p.m., she was born. 4 p.m., I had a huge meal. I like it. So, yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah.
even when you're in labor, like you can prepare for a long labor. Just
Yes.
make sure that you're just doing whatever you would do in a normal day. You need to just be relaxed, be yourself, don't overthink it. Just curious, did you tear in either of your births?
In the first one, I ended up in this clinic with the midwife, local, midwife. She didn't even speak English. I had like my full freedom and ceremony, and my doula just supporting, but mostly my husband. And I was kind of like holding on to him and spiraling my hips and so on. And then when I was giving birth, I was pushing maybe for like 40 minutes. I was like fully dilated, but it was like a first labor boy, big head. I don't know. I was pushing. I had to push him out. It wasn't this like pop out or breathe him,
Yeah.
or maybe, I don't know, maybe, but I was ready to push and I was ready to like give labor, right? Like give birth. And so his head came out, and that's the only intervention I received in my first birth was when his head came out. She grabbed his head and kind of like pulled the rest of the body out, and then given him to me. And that was the only one time when I had like this high pitch, like I was kind of like whoa, or just like breathing, and that's like ah. And I also, of course, contracted, like even when I'm doing that, like I feel that contraction in my yoni that I'm doing because I was not ready. I needed to actually exhale, like I needed to take a deep breath, and I needed one more wave for the body to come out. And I didn't expect anyone like touching him or right, like so one intervention, there was a tear for sure. I feel like the shoulders and my contraction and that intervention created tearing.
Yeah.
There
Just
with the
taking that time to let the baby come out like in its own time.
and with the body feeling
Yeah.
open and on your body's term and on nobody else's terms or time.
There's even studies that support a water birth because the water actually allows and facilitates you to open up slowly and reduces the risk of tearing. So, yeah.
So my second birth was a water birth.
Yeah.
I thought my first one will be as well, but we were in such situations. We were not really set up. We were not in our home. It was very different. We were very nomadic at that point of life. So yeah, I loved the water birth. It was effortless.
Just quickly, I wanted to ask because it's such an amazing experience and you are so connected with your child during pregnancy. How has having a ecstatic birth impacted your journey into motherhood, like your relationship with your children now and also your partner? How do you think that this has impacted you?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh my goodness. Like, okay, with my husband, with my beloved, we've had incredible romantic timeline, like the most incredible wedding with hundred of people and just like incredible. We had the birth of our son. We had so many powerful moments that we shared and that felt so sacred and so bonding and so intimate. We have beautiful lovemaking, all these aspects. Having this ecstatic birth experience, was the most incredible thing we shared together. It was incredible. The fact that it was just the two of us, the fact that he fully connected with all of that birth, with that frequency. He was feeling exactly the same things I was feeling. When her head popped out, it was like these raptures, ecstatic fireworks, the whole universe celebrating. Like, we looked into each other's eyes. He couldn't believe it. His eyes were wide open. And the way he was looking at me, I will never forget. He was looking at me like I am the most incredible birthing goddess. Like I'm the most powerful woman he've ever seen. He was looking at me with such love, with such reverence, with such passion, with such admiration. He was completely blown away by me. And we created this baby girl. So while these fireworks are just like all around, we're locked eyes. And I will never forget this moment.
Layla, it's been wonderful to talk to you today. I've learned so much. It's been amazing. And more women are opening themselves to the possibility of an ecstatic or an orgasmic birth and moving away from what's quote unquote a normal birth, which is not normal. Thank you for opening up about your experience. It was beautiful.
Absolutely. I absolutely love sharing. Thank you for your passion in this topic and bringing this to the public and spreading this message. And do please connect with me if you feel like, whoever's listening and you want to either work with me or just share your insights or your birth stories and so on, have a conversation. Find me on Instagram. This is my main one, Layla Aluna Love _
Perfect. And if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you give us a follow and rate the show. And if you think you know someone who needs to hear this episode, give it a share so we can spread the word and educate more mamas and women worldwide. And we'll see you next Monday for another juicy episode. For more information on pregnancy, birth, and parenthood, head over to my website or Instagram at blissfulbirth.co. And just a little reminder, the information contained in this podcast is here to educate and empower and does not replace the advice of your own healthcare provider.